Welcome to Side Quests and Skill Trees, where healing meets gameplay. In every great RPG, the main quest matters. But the side quests are where you gather what you didn't know what you needed. Insight, allies, resources, and reps. And so here, side quests are the optional tasks, you choose in real life. Small missions that build momentum without burning you out. And skill trees are the essential skills you level up on purpose. So emotional regulation, communication, boundaries, rest, courage, self-trust. So your life actually plays better. So like we say in skill trees and side quests, optional tasks, essential skills. Let's level up. So today's saga. Kyle, you ready for this one?
I am. I have a personal experience with this one, so.
Oh, this is good. So this saga is the anxiety saga. So I need to welcome you all to the anxiety saga. We're not here to calm down as a personality trait. We're here to build a character who can stay steady, even when the game gets intense. So this is the arc where your brain tries to keep you safe by sprinting 10 miles ahead while your body is still in the present, like, cool, so why are we panicking now? So in side quests and skill trees, we don't treat anxiety like a personal flaw. We treat it like an overworked protector, like a guard NPC that never logs off. So anxiety is often your system scanning for danger, running worst case simulations, or even pushing you to control the uncontrollable. It's not crazy. It's misdirected care with too much caffeine. So I would say this is going to be a really fun one. Don't you agree?
I do. And, I kind of want to piggyback a little bit on what you were kind of saying. And you know what? Let's get into the game too as well so that we are all good to go here. But as far as like anxiety is concerned, what you were talking about, I'm sure we'll kind of get into it, but a lot of stuff that we're going to be talking about things like fight or flight responses, and we're going to be talking about amygdala hijacks and what that all looks like. And these are all things that I myself have personally experienced because I myself am diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder and panic disorder. So I have a lot of personal experience to draw from as we jump into playing some Geometry Dash today.
Ooh, this is going to be a fun one. I like where this is going. It's so colorful. And it's making all my sensories just like, ooh, fun, happy colors.
Right.
I love it.
So a little bit about the game is just that it is a music rhythm game. It's very much about, while also being like a platformer. So the idea is you're going to listen to some music and we're going to jump and avoid some obstacles while we listen to music. So it's pretty straightforward concept, but as you'll see, it gets a little bit complicated. But we'll start with the easiest level first.
Please, thank God, because I need to understand the concept of this. Thank you. So today, I always say optional task, essential skills, right? So the optional task for today, it can be small, like drinking sustainable water, unclenching your jaw, step outside and touch grass or snow, reduce inputs like doom scrolling, right? Because doom scrolling is basically feeding the boss, right? And then also naming what you're actually afraid might happen. So those are the optional tasks. So those are your optional tasks that you can do. Now, the essential skills for the anxiety saga, these are the ones that can lower threat in real time. So first of all, grounding. Where are my feet? What do I see, hear, feel right now? Breath control. Slow exhales. A lot of us don't exhale slow enough. So your nervous system gets the memo, right? You need to slow down so your nervous system says, oh, you're actually relaxed right now. Let me reset.
Right.
Reality checking.
I was going to say a good skill for the breathing is what's called box breathing. And so the idea with that is that if you think about a box and all four sides of the box, they are all like the same length, the same size. So the idea is to breathe in through your nose I usually tell people 4 seconds, but it's honestly whatever you feel comfortable with.
I like 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, 5, 6, whatever is going to work best for you. Some people find that, especially if they're very anxious, they can't get to 4. They have to start with 2 or 3. But generally, it's breathe in through your nose for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, exhale through your mouth for 4 seconds, and then hold for 4 seconds before you start it all over again. And again, based on how you're feeling, you could try to hold it for 8 seconds or 6 seconds, 5 seconds, whatever works. But that's a really good breathing skill that just can be very helpful.
And there's actually, so I read this beautiful book by, I think it's James Nestor. It's called Breath. And what I loved about it is that it talked about how our health is based upon the way we are breathing and the way we aren't breathing. So it's kind of crazy how your whole body can literally create a disease simply because of the way you breathe. And they find that people that are mouth breathers actually they're usually more prone to being sick than nose breathers, because the nose actually filters, right? And so a lot of people also get sick because they hold too much acidity in their body. And if you hold too much CO2 in your body, that actually makes it more uncomfortable and distressful for your body to perform its most optimal functioning. So I have been very much focusing on, like, am I breathing through my nose today? Am I breathing? When I'm talking to people, when do I stop breathing when I'm talking? Right? So breath is just, it's so important how your life can be completely changed by breathing.
Right.
Yeah, I'm curious, Kyle, do you think that, well, let me say, are you a mouth breather or are you a nose breather?
Depends on how clogged my nose is.
Yeah, in the wintertime, it's kind of weird, yeah.
Right. But no, I tend to be, I'd say nose, unless it's like clogged or, and something's just keeping me from doing it. But generally, yeah, I'd say probably through the nose. So that's interesting. That's good to know, though. I did not know that before, so.
Yeah. It's serious.
Yeah.
Also, the last one for the essential skill, choice. So what is the next doable action? Not the whole lifespan. So when people say, hey, take it one day at a time, for someone like me, you cannot tell me to take it one day at a time, because the things I can do within 24 hours is phenomenal. So you can't just tell me like, hey, it's only 11:21, right? Like, we're recording right now. It's 11:22 now, p.m. I mean, a.m. Jesus, it's a.m. a.m. And so you have to stay within the time frame you're in. And I've been doing this thing that, for me, I wouldn't say I have anxiety, but I get nervous. So let's just talk about let's just start from like the bottom, and then we'll really get a little complex. Is that cool with you?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, awesome. So I want you to define anxiety disorder, and then I'm going to define anxiety disorder. So I want them to see how two therapists can think differently about the understanding of diagnosis, but still create the same criteria.
Right. So for me, from, and again, based on like personal experience and everything, generalized anxiety disorder for me is usually a perceived fear or threat that causes very specific physiological and mental responses. So one of the big things that I usually focus on a lot with clients is talking about the fight or flight response. So obviously we have this fight or flight response that triggers anytime we feel that we are threatened. And the problem that starts to happen with some people with anxiety is that the fight or flight response gets triggered in non-threatening situations. So something that might not be life-threatening is now causing a life-threatening type of response. So, I talked at the beginning what was called the amygdala hijack. And for those who are not aware, the amygdala is a small gland in the brain that when you become or when you start getting into that fight or flight response, the amygdala essentially takes over the brain, and it starts pumping adrenaline through your body. It starts kicking up your heart rate. The idea is that it is getting you ready to fight or flee or freeze, fawn, whatever the response is, because there's a lot of different ways that you can respond. So when that happens, it's cutting off the rest of the brain. So the ability to think critically, the ability to take your time and think through something, those are all out the window. It's gone. And so instead, you are met with these circular thinking, you're met with rumination, you're met with constant feelings of fear, death, dying, threats of any kind. And that kind of also gets into panic disorder a little bit, but the idea is that what we want to do and what we try to do with therapy and kind of, utilizing skills and tools is how do we give you skills that can help reduce the impact the amygdala has so that we can get back to thinking critically, we can get back to logical thinking and kind of start challenging some of these thoughts and these fears. So I would say, yeah, so with anxiety, it's really just kind of like a perceived fear that is not necessarily untrue, but the severity of that fear is more than it should be, I guess, in a way. And it can be accompanied by many different symptoms.
I love that. For me, anxiety disorder is a neurological, emotional, and somatic experience where the body cannot determine between safe or unsafe experience. It is an imbalance between reality and experience, and the distortion creates, I guess, an internalization that allows the person to externalize their illness or their discomfort or their distress, and eventually causing a loop-like behavior. And so it becomes compulsive and impulsive distraction or disruption. So when I work with people, I consider the biological, neurological, and somatic integration that's occurring. And so when I diagnose someone with anxiety disorder, I'm looking at how they keep repeating their own cycle with the understanding and awareness of what's happening. Because a lot of times with people that have anxiety, they're very aware, they're very understanding, they're very, they have understood their lives, but for some reason they can't, as I say, land the plane, right? So what would it take for you to land the plane rather than fear that it might crash, right?
Right.
And so there's a lot of different things that I could say about that, but I think my first support for this would be cognitive distortions. I think we should start there. So a cognitive distortion is a mindset or a belief system that has you guiding yourself in society that may not actually be accurate. There's like 10 of them, right? There's like 10 of them. Let me think. Like, there might be 10. So I'm gonna try and do them.
Okay. I appreciate that.
Yeah. First one I would say is mind reading, where you're guessing what someone else is thinking. Right? So you're always thinking like, oh, they're probably thinking this, they're probably thinking this, they're probably thinking this. And you don't give the other person the space to exist in the conversation you're both having. Right? Negative predictions, where because of what you haven't resolved in your past, you're already predicting the failure so that you can brace yourself for the impact. The all or nothing mentality, where it's like, if I don't do this all, then I won't be anything. If I don't, and because I don't have everything, I'm nothing. It's like you don't even give yourself the chance to try. Perfectionism or unrelenting standards. So you feel like if you lower your standard, then you'll just be anything. You'll just be susceptible to everything. So when people are like, if I don't have my man being this, and this, I can't have him. It's like, well, you're not even like 1/3 of those things. So why where does this expectation come from? Right? Usually it comes from fear-based work, right?
Yeah.
Entitlement beliefs, right? When you believe the same rules that apply to others should not apply for you, right? Like why, like you're an intern. Why do you think that you deserve to tell what the CEO should be doing? Right? Even though you may be older than the CEO, right? And that's a real thing, right?
Yep. That was me during my internship.
Man, right? So also, what is it? I always say people that should all over themselves. Well, I should do this. Well, I should have did this. Well, I should have did that. Well, I should have been doing this. All that regret and form, right? That's a lot of personalization. And anxiety is connected to a lot of these because anxiety has to create the belief to feel like it's co-regulating with you. And so I always tell my clients, instead of doing all the mumbo jumbo, I say anxiety lives the story of what if.
Yep.
What if? What if?
I was waiting for that. I was like, it's a lot of what ifs. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like talking kind of like, again, about kind of personal experience. Like, and I've spoken with you about this, is like, I have anxiety about like driving or going far distances. I still do it, obviously, but there's the what if, what if I have a panic attack in the middle of nowhere on the road? What if I break down somewhere in the middle of the road, like, or in the middle of nowhere? Like, there's all these what if thoughts that go through my head, and I have to challenge a lot of those and kind of utilize some skills and different, coping techniques in order to make sure that I don't, like, become susceptible to those thoughts.
I'm so glad you said that, because I think that my mantra, I always try to have a mantra for every disorder. And so my mantra for anxiety is I would rather have a life of oh wells than what ifs.
I like that. That's nice.
Yeah, you got it. It's yours. You can have it. So I'd rather have a life of oh wells than what ifs, because the truth is that when you look at the timeline and the history of a human being, between the ages of 25 and 70, or 65 actually, like that's 40 years worth of experiences that you have to experience when you're like in your most optimal existence. Right? You're not stuck in the school phase, you're adulting-ish, you're raising children, you're doing things that, where you're actually living your identity. And it does get harder as you get older.
Yeah.
But it also becomes more free, because then you're also okay with being who you are. So it's a unique thing. So let me ask you, it's gonna get kind of hard, and I know you're like in a very difficult I was like, this is not a good time. I was like, man, you're really doing good. I'm wondering what's the good thing about anxiety and what's the bad thing about anxiety?
I think the good thing about anxiety is that it can be helpful in educating you on yourself. I think it can be a good way for you to better understand what it means to kind of be you. It makes you more aware of what are the things that you are afraid of, what are the things that you have difficulty with, so that you can kind of push yourself and challenge yourself. I'm a big Bruce Lee fan, and he always was talking about, there are no limits, only the limits that you set. And so, always kind of trying to better yourself. I always talk about, we always want to try to be the best version of ourselves given the day, because the best version of myself today might not be as good as the best version of myself yesterday, but it might still be better than the best version of myself a week ago. So I think it can be good in that it kind of helps you become more educated on yourself. You become more aware of, your body, what it feels like to feel certain things in your body. But also, I think the downside obviously is kind of, again, the what ifs, like kind of these feelings of, perceived fear, perceived threat, perceived, helplessness. Like, again, going through my own situation, like, what if my car breaks down in the middle of nowhere? Like, yeah, it's a what if question. Yes, it could happen, but then it's a lot of like, okay, well, let's challenge it. Let's say it does happen. What then? What do you do? Like, and really kind of breaking that down, and starting to work through those. But yeah, I think the what ifs and obviously the physiological reaction can be really difficult, especially if the anxiety elevates to a panic attack, in which case then, for a lot of people, like for myself included, my first panic attack felt like I thought I was having a heart attack. So then there's the extra fear of, well, what if that happens again?
Right.
So I would say that those are, for me at least, personally, those are definitely kind of the things that I focus on as like the negatives and positives.
Yeah. I think for me, when I'm about to perform, it's interesting that when I'm performing with like my brass band, I don't have anxiety about that. But when I'm performing by myself and I'm just like me in like a rhythm section, I get so much anxiety. My throat closes a little bit. My mouth gets dry. I'm all nervous. And I'm like, what is this feeling? I'm like, I know the songs. I know the music. I'm just, and then I start thinking, what if I hit the wrong note? What if I can't hit my chops? What if I can't hit the high notes? I'm like, oh no, I'm starting to what if myself. And then I have to remind myself, well, these people came to see me because they're excited to see me. They're fans of mine. They love what I do. And I also realize when I'm with my brass band, what I'm feeling is less responsible.
The
right?
division of responsibility.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times understanding that you may just need a genuine companionship, like to just remind you that, hey, like we're here for you, not for how good you should play.
Right.
And I think that is a lot of, especially when I work with a lot of athletes, I work with a couple of NFL players, and they talk about how their anxiety kind of makes them more physically fatigued. Because they're actually putting more energy into their physical work when they should be resting in between like downs.
Yeah. And I think that's
There's
the other
no reset.
thing. Yeah, and I think that's another thing to really point out is that with anxiety, it's not just mental. You are causing physical exhaustion because your body is going into that fight or flight mode and it's using resources. So it's pumping adrenaline, it's starting to increase your heart rate, and that is going to cause a physical exhaustion, not dissimilar from, just exercising. So, keeping in mind that, people who have anxiety, after the anxiety goes away, they're tired and they want to sleep or they want to, it's a very exhausting experience, especially if you have prolonged anxiety over long periods of time. And that amygdala is just constantly being triggered and constantly being utilized. And then there was something else I wanted to go back to that you said, but I cannot remember off the top of my head.
There's something I wanted to go back to with you as well.
Okay.
Because you said something really good. You talk about fight, flight.
Yeah.
So they added 2 more. You know what they are?
Freeze and fawn.
Let's go into that. Yeah. Ew, I love it.
Yeah. So depending on, how you react when you get into fight or flight mode is people either they want to fight, so they could argue, they could physically fight, like anything like that. Flight is they want to avoid the situation, walk away, run away, whatever it may be. Freezing is shutting down, just have no idea how to respond and just go silent, just zone out, like cannot respond in any way. And then fawning is kind of more specific to like if it's like involved with a person, like people pleasing behaviors, like starting to try to like, act in a way that is going to be beneficial for you to survive. I feel like there was another one recently that they're either they added or they're discussing the possibility of adding, but I can't remember what it was. But it's another F term.
So All right. I'm gonna. So the fawn. I think people don't recognize that sometimes they fawn
Okay.
over things, and I just want to go into that one because I think we might. I think it's a really important one
Yeah.
because in the social media world, we often fawn over things more than we want to acknowledge.
Right.
So, like, you have a lot of adoration towards people's lives because you watch them, right? It's like, oh my gosh, I love the way they did their makeup. Oh my gosh, I wish I could do that. Or, oh wow, I'm looking at the way that they are living, like drinking matcha tea over the balconies of Paraguay. It's like, okay. It's like, why? Like the same matcha is right around the corner from you, but because there's no parrots or there's no forest, the matcha doesn't taste as valuable.
Right.
And then you start having this disruption internally where you're like, well, I'm not living the life that I want. But the matcha is still the same matcha. It's the experience. And so we fawn over the placement of others in comparison to us. And I truly believe in anxiety, we do a lot of comparison, not because of what's better or what's worse, but because it's instinctual safety. Like, this is better for me, this is not as good for me. This is good for me, this is not good for me, right? And when you compare other people, you're starting to measure something that doesn't have an actual, wow, that is a crazy, you just made that. Wow, good job. Like, I stopped, like, there's no, did that shit turn upside down?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. See, I shouldn't have said anything.
You're fine.
I'm sorry. Wow, that was amazing.
This is the first level on this, at least on this account, that I have not finished it yet. So,
wow, that's amazing. Okay, so yeah, so I just think that a lot of times our like people say they have anxiety disorder, but I think that we need to start looking at the onsets, like how in depression, you know, the only onsets is isolation. Like, that's what lets me know. Like, I know when my sadness is becoming more of an illness, right? And I think we need to understand that there are emotions that occur before an illness is created. And I think that's a very big, yeah, I should make that a post because like that's so important for us to understand. Emotions are normal. It's when we don't regulate or sit with them or acknowledge and name them is when they become an illness. No different than if you leave food in the refrigerator for longer than it should be, it spoils. It goes rotten, right? Like, if we're not using our emotions in the time that we're experiencing, then it does become an illness. And then we have anxiety disorder, right? So what are some onsets that you would say? Like with me, I said with fawn, before you get to fawning, you're usually in comparison, right? So what would you say for anxiety? What would be some onsets? I'll give some too after you do yours.
I mean, I think we kind of touched on it a little bit, but I feel like people need to be just more aware of their own physiological responses than they are. I think that we often, we'll get into a situation where maybe our heart rate goes up, but we're not fully like being aware that it's happening. I usually like to use this example of like, one of the skills that I teach with people is called the stop skill. And it's a very basic kind of skill involved to kind of help reduce and regulate anxiety. I'm going to pause for a second so I can talk about this.
Real.
But the stop skill basically stands for, you stop when you notice that you are having these like thoughts of anxiety or things like that. You take a breath, take a break. So that's when like box breathing comes into play. But the O in stop stands for observe. So I always tell people to observe not only the, things that are external that are happening, but also the things that are internally happening. So what are you feeling? Are you feeling you're feeling nauseous? Are you feeling your heart rate go up? Are you feeling yourself sweating? Are you feeling your shoulders tense up? Are you feeling yourself making fists with your hands? Are you feeling like your vision is like very tunnel vision? Like, do you feel like your hearing changed? Like, keeping aware of the things that you are experiencing. And but also being observational of what is happening externally. And there's this
Mm-hmm.
like one example that I like to use of like a client that whenever they would go driving, they would get super anxious at some point during the drive and they could not explain it. And so, using the stop skill, kind of observing what was going on, it took a while, but eventually kind of came to the realization that they had a very specific music set list that they played every time they drove their
Mm-hmm.
car. And there was one specific song on that playlist that reminded them of something that happened to them that was very kind of anxiety inducing, traumatic experience. And so anytime that song came on, they started feeling that anxiety. So we kind of discovered it wasn't that it was the driving that was causing the anxiety, it was that specific song.
Wow.
So we removed the song from the playlist, and then boom, driving wasn't a problem anymore. So that's why like observation can be such an important thing. So for me, I very much am all about observing surroundings, external stuff, but also really paying attention to internally, because then you also have an idea of like, oh, hey, I'm feeling my heart rate go up. Something is causing my heart rate to go up, and I'm not exercising. So, something is, externally like causing a sense of anxiety right now. I need to kind of, I can look at what's happening around me and try to discern what is causing that. So for me, it's very much observational, like internal feelings and how your body feels with anxiety.
Well, I would say I would like people to be very conscious about how they use mental health language. Because it's becoming more socialized, they're kind of misusing it. And emotions are a foundation of that world. And I find a lot of times people use diagnostic words and not emotions. So I'll probably have a rant about this on another podcast. But, I don't hang out with people and be like, oh, yeah, I'm so stage 2 cancer today, man. Yeah, I'm just not feeling today. Right. Like, you don't hear that, right? Right. So then why would you say, oh, yeah, my anxiety is like crazy right now? It's like, well, what in the anxiety are you experiencing? Right? They're generalizing a diagnostic illness.
Yeah.
And not acknowledging maybe you just woke up wrong.
Right.
Maybe you didn't take the time to drink water and breathe and stretch today. Maybe you're just tired and exhausted because you didn't go to sleep on time and you ate a lot of poor choice foods. Or maybe you were drunk that night and you woke up and you were completely just, you didn't wake up on the best side of the bed today. Or you had a rough time getting through traffic, right? So you were feeling anxious. You may have been nervous. You have a job interview today, so you're feeling nervous because you're worried about how you're going to perform. A lot of times musicians have a lot of fear performing because they don't practice enough.
Yep, that was me.
Right. So it was one of those things where it's like, is that anxiety or was that just the reaction, a healthy reaction to the lack of investment? Right? There's nothing wrong with being nervous. There's nothing wrong with being sad. There's nothing wrong with being worried. Yeah. But, because sometimes anxiety can be a good thing because it does make sure that you're being accountable in the moment of what you think is happening. Right. It gives you a level of emotional foresight about how to prepare for things and to embrace things. But I also know preparing yourself and exposing yourself to things can also build a tolerance for resilience.
Yeah.
And so there is a healthy medium.
Yeah.
Right. And I also want people to be very honest about their actual emotions and not the diagnostic term.
Right.
Right. Like, oh, I'm worried about this test. I'm worried I'm not going to pass. Well, did you study for it? No. Oh, I saw you study. Could you study for it better? Yeah, but I just wanted to watch Netflix and I just got caught up playing a game. Like, so it sounds like you don't feel prepared. So the real reframe is, I'm worried about this test because I didn't prepare as well as I should have. That's emotional accountability. Right. And so, but then anxiety would be, you're worried about it, and you don't even, and it didn't even happen yet. You have time to study for it, and you're worried about it, the test already happening, and you didn't even study for it yet. Like, you're already feeling like you're there on the test day,
Right.
and you got 3 months to study for it.
Yeah. No, the amount of times that like I will preemptively think about like a whole situation and I already start feeling the anxiety. Like I'm essentially conditioning myself to get anxious about something by doing that. And again, it's going into those what ifs, and then you start exploring the scenario in your head, and that just causes more anxiety and rumination and all of that. And I also wanted to say like that, yes, like making sure that you are like eating well, sleeping well, like, because there have certainly been days where like I don't sleep well, or I get little less sleep than I should, and my anxiety is elevated that day. And it's just like, yeah, it's because I didn't get enough sleep. And so I'm less in that kind of critical thinking stage, and I am more in the amygdala hijacking stage because I have had that lack of sleep and my brain did not get enough time to reset and rest. So yeah, those are absolutely variables to keep in mind as well.
I really believe that there's a space where, as healers, we have to know that the state of this world has a level of anxiety.
Yep.
And I say that very intentionally because the truth is that when it comes to anxiety, we don't know what's going to happen to us. We don't know who's going to care about us enough to do the right thing. We don't know which politician is actually going to care about us in a way that we can have a livelihood of job. We know we're going to have our jobs, right? Like there's a certain fear that we haven't talked about fear yet, by the way. That there's uncertainty with, is me working hard at this school and this degree going to really give me a lifestyle that I've invested in? Am I learning this for no reason? Mm-hmm. Right? What's the promise of my hard work? Right? Yeah. And so it's hard to hold that type of awareness, knowing that the power is not in our hands, yet we're forced to be controlling what good grades are happening. So it's very hard to look at what's the big picture and what's the little picture of things.
Right. Absolutely. So speaking of fear,
yeah,
you want to jump into fear?
Yeah, because I think that'll be the last thing.
All
so, fear. Oh, fear. Sweet, sweet fear. First things first, fear is a normal thing.
Yep.
Fear is one of the most natural emotions and experiences. Fear is a way of living. Fear is a way of survival. Fear is needed to live as human beings. Mm-hmm. Whatever you are, you need fear to live. Not having fear could completely change your entire life, right? So when people come into therapy, they'll often say a bunch of, like, the story's long, they'll have a lot to say, and I'll simply just ask, what are you afraid of what will happen to you? Right? Principle 1 of reset. The action is never the reason. Mm-hmm. So yes, I hear your story, but what were you actually afraid of, or what are you afraid of? What are you uncertain of? And you find how relational their fear is. I believe that fear is a relational concept, but it's a internalized experience. Right. So I'll start with that. I mean, would you say that that's pretty solid?
Yeah, no, I agree. I've never actually really thought about it as in the sense of it being relational. So that is, I think it makes sense saying it that way, though. Like, I don't have any objection to that. I think that makes perfect sense, actually. Things are about to get a little bit crazy here.
Yeah, I kind of put my hand over my mouth because I was like, oh my God, I don't want to mess this up.
Ah!
Oh my God! Oh, you were so close.
Yeah.
Oh.
Talking about anxiety.
Right. I was like, when I'm in fear, I get quiet and I put my hand over my mouth. Wow. So, man, that was so close. Okay, well, you feel. Yeah. Wow, man. I was really rooting for you.
We'll get there. We'll get there before we're done here.
Okay.
I have full confidence that I can beat this.
Oh, thank God. Okay, so yeah, I really I feel like I think we don't, as human beings, we don't really use fear in the right term anymore. Mm-hmm. Like fear back in the day was like, you have to understand what's going on in the world, like the landscape, animals, danger,
right?
Things like that. Now it's like I'm typing on a piece of paper and I have the same anxiety as if I was hunting a lion.
Right. Yeah. And that kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier. It's just kind of like this idea of like perceived threat, even when there isn't one. So like, perceived danger. And what does it mean for it to be perceived versus, an actual threat?
And I hate to say it, that a lot of relationships naturally yes, let's go, let's go, yes.
And now we're getting into the ones that I am not very far in, so this will be fun.
Awesome. So I think that fear is becoming more task and relational oriented than an internal awareness focused. But I do appreciate that there are some new healing modalities and types of therapies that really do make fear a focus. Mm-hmm. And they usually tie it to like age regression, because they focus on how children are the first initiators of fear. Like, so we're gonna do a little developmental school theory real quick, okay?
All right.
So children have the best emotional intelligence because they have no expectation other than the experience in which they experience, right? Mm-hmm. And it's very important to talk about it because a lot of children they live unprotected emotionally. Mm-hmm. Yes, they have parents. Yes, they have guardians. Yes, they have people that care for them. But when it comes to emotional wellness, there is nothing protecting them. Mm-hmm. They are just experiencing what life is offering them. That's it. And so I always say child on fire, because children will be put on fire and not even know that they're on fire. Mm-hmm. Or it'll be so much to handle that they just experience it and we can't stop them, because you can't be with that child 24/7, because eventually they have to go to school, they have to go to daycare, they have to make friends, they have to be a part of teams, they have to be a part of soccer club, we're not going to monitor every healthy interaction.
Right.
And also as parents, we're not going to give our children every healthy experience. Yeah. Right? So I would say child on fire, because as much as I don't want my child to get caught on fire, unfortunately, they're going to get something.
Right.
They're going to experience some type of discomfort in their life.
Yep.
And unfortunately, when a child gets on fire and they touch another kid, that child will get on fire. And the whole class is on fire, because kids don't know how to protect themselves emotionally.
Right.
They just experience each other. They don't know that they're on fire. They don't know that. And then we move into the teens, and then we see how rebellious teenagers are. And you're like, why are these kids so bad? Why are these kids so bad? And that is actually a healthy awareness to see children challenging and fighting against the social norm of things. Because what it's asking is, is asking the child to figure out their way of putting the power into their hands about what they would do to feel better about themselves. Which is why a lot of teenagers experience, they do a lot of, I guess you could say, experimenting, right? That's when they first try alcohol, maybe, or they might find the next recent lewd work, or they might try smoking for the first time, or they might even have sexual relations, right? Hormones are popping, things are happening, but it's not because they just want to. It's literally they're trying to figure out how to regulate emotions that they can't explain, but now they have the power to understand dynamics. So children don't really understand working dynamics, like relational dynamics. It's more parental child, and then teenagers like have pseudo adult life, but they still have the parental figure. And so they're learning how to adult they're actually learning how to navigate unresolved childhood issues by rebelling as teenagers.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like they're literally trying to regulate what the child would have done now that they have a more capable body. Right. And then you have adults, where adults, because they understand that the childhood experience happened and they rebelled enough in their teenage life, they've learned the art of masking, right? They've learned how to filter identities through labels. So they're very focused on labeling to help compartmentalize emotional disruption or emotional unresolved, or to create a life cycle or an identity that helps them kind of stay away from the heart of the issue, which fear is usually a part of. Right? Fear is an awareness, not a solution or a problem. So you kind of like how I explained that, you know what I mean, with like the child on fire, the rebellious teenager, and the masking adult.
Yeah, no, I think that all makes a lot of sense, and I think it's a lot of stuff that we really don't think about, and that can. Woo! Hey, cool.
Yes. Wait a second, I was like, hey, that last one. Yes.
I like trying to answer, and I'm just like, what? I haven't gotten this far before, so. Yay. Okay.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, I think that there's a lot. Obviously, there is a lot that ties into. And one thing that kind of, especially when people are incredibly dysregulated, or they especially maybe growing up, they constantly were in a state of fight or flight. They were constantly in that amygdala hijack. One of the things I always talk about is that, there's this, the brain is a muscle, just like any other muscle. And so the best way that you're going to strengthen it is by training it. And so the problem that a lot of people run into is that, we start talking about these different skills and techniques that we can use, but it's not a fast enough fix. And you have to consider the fact that if your amygdala has been trained over years, decades, like, it's going to take time to strengthen up the rest of the brain to meet that same level of strength. You don't go to the gym for the first time and try to bench press 500 pounds. Like, that's not happening. So, to expect that you can just do that and be able to master these techniques, and then all of a sudden the amygdala muscle is going to be, thwarted, is kind of an unrealistic expectation. And so I always kind of give people that, like, forward thinking of, like, this is going to take practice. It's going to take time. And the other thing that I always like to emphasize with, like, the stop skill, for example, is practice these skills in moments of peace and moments where you are not anxious. Because the reason is you will condition your brain to associate that peace and calm with that skill. So that when you do get into a moment of high anxiety and you go to use that skill, you've already conditioned your brain to associate calm with it. So it's actually like a twofold increase in how effective it can be. So not only are we working on the biological sense of we're reducing the heart rate, we're working on reducing the adrenaline in the body, but now you mentally have a conditioned response to that skill as well.
Mm. I love that, and I think there's a promise for people that may have anxiety. You may not know you have anxiety. I really want people to understand that there's a space for you. There's a space for you to exist in anxiety, and I need them to see it as a way of life, right? A way of being. It's not something to put down. It's something to think, oh, I have something that's looking out for me, so that I don't have to experience that again. Right? It's amazing when you actually honor the experience you're having. When you're actually honoring what you're going through. When you're honoring what's actually being like, oh, I have anxiety about this moment. What do I need to feel more secure about this experience? Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. We want to start looking at how we can give ourselves that space.
Right. It's not about getting rid of the anxiety. It's about utilizing it to better yourself. So how can you use it to make sure that, you are living, again, kind of the best life or your best version of yourself on any given day, depending on that day. And how can you take that anxiety and use it in a positive or productive way so that you feel a sense of, you can take the anxiety and kind of reshape it and reform it to your benefit.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying it that way, because I feel like the biggest side quest and skill tree, the essential here is just being mindful of your anxiety wants you to feel ready. And sometimes naming what you need to feel ready is more important than actually doing the task itself.
Right.
And so taking time to say, I need this to feel more secure. And if someone can't offer that, or if you can't offer, then that means that this might be that moment where you have to move on or change yourself from that experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I always like to, we grew up on G.I. Joe. I always talk about G.I. Joe would always say, knowing is half the battle. And I wholeheartedly agree that like just knowing is definitely a core piece of understanding, what to do. So knowing that you have these symptoms, knowing how it feels in your body, knowing the thought processes that go behind it, like knowing those things is the first step. And so, because it's awareness.
I think it's a three-step process.
Okay. What are those? And what would you say the three steps are then?
So it would be knowing is half the battle. Mm-hmm. Well, I think knowing is 1/3 of the battle. So knowing is 1/3 of the battle. The second third is naming the battle. Mm-hmm. And then 3 would be renewing the experience.
Okay.
So, knowing, naming, and renewing would be mine. Because I think we're so used to the same outcome, that negative predicting, right? Mm-hmm. That we limit our ability and capability to the point where it's like we don't even give ourselves a chance to experience something new, so we can recorrect old thoughts and old behaviors and old beliefs.
Right.
And I do that a lot in hypnotherapy, where I have old beliefs and new conclusions. Old beliefs, new conclusions. Old beliefs, new conclusions. Old beliefs, new conclusions. Right? Because you learned things that maybe you had to accept at 5 years old that you don't have to accept anymore at 42.
Right.
Right? So we have to renew the experience. But before you renew the experience, you have to name what the actual thing is. Because some of us don't name what our issues are. We just kind of exist through them, and because we know better, but we don't name it, right?
Right.
So I think those would be my biggest things for the anxiety saga. I'll give you the last attempt, and then we'll close it out from here.
All right. Let's see if I can do it.
You got this.
Yeah, this is not one that I've beaten before, so this is all. Most of it is pretty new for me.
Yeah, this is pretty dope. This is a hard
It's
one.
yeah, this is a fun game though. It can be very anxiety inducing though. That's for sure.
And right, knowing is half the battle. And then you're
Exactly.
naming it and you're
Well.
renewing it by saying,
I keep trying.
exactly. That's it. Keeping it simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've learned to honor renewing experiences,
Yeah.
right, from old existences. I think that's so important.
So
All
before,
right.
real quick though, do you want to see how crazy this does get though?
I do want to know.
Let's try. I can't remember. Oh yeah, this one.
What? wait. we're-
This
Wait, I
one's
don't-
insane.
I don't understand this. Wow. People have beaten this?
Yes. And this isn't even as crazy as it gets. The sum of the community made maps are absolutely wild.
I'm assuming like the music really helps out though, right?
Right, because you kind of move on the beats.
Oh my god. Duh, we have to close out from there because that's just my god. That's
So, yeah.
crazy.
So that is Geometry Dash. Why? Yeah.
Wow,
okay.
that was amazing.
All right. So that is this month's side quests or side quests and skill trees.
Oh man, and I just want to say thank you to all the viewers that are just watching. Please share, like, subscribe, because we're gonna keep doing different sagas. And if you have any sagas that you may want to hear or talk about, we can do that. So, just a quick reminder before we go: grounding, breath control, reality checking, and choice. Those are the essential skills for today. And the optional tasks are unclenching your jaw, drink water, step outside and breathe. Do not doom scroll because that's feeding the boss. Do not do that. And just remember that your anxiety is not a personal flaw. It's a way you've had to learn how to survive. And we're just giving you the skills to live.
Absolutely.
Thank you all so much. And we'll see you at the next saga.